couple of weeks ago, I happened to notice a post on Google Plus where somebody was comparing a Spider-Man comic book to the Bible and claiming they were both works of fiction. This got me thinking about my own journey of becoming a believer in Jesus Christ. I was raised a Catholic, but when I went off to college, basically left all that behind. But I came back to trying to understand, was there really a God? Because life just didn't make sense to me. And what it led me to was to look at the prophecy of the Old Testament. Are you open to see what I saw? If you are, I want to take you on a journey of what I think is the most compelling Bible prophecy that comes from Daniel chapter 9. Let me start by giving you a little bit of background about Daniel. First, it's of course a book of the Old Testament. Most scholars believe that it was written sometime between 605 and 533 BC. A lot of people who've looked at prophecy of the Old Testament, however, try to claim that a lot of the Old Testament was written after Christ. There's conclusive evidence that that's not the case. That evidence was that there was a translation of the Old Testament that was completed somewhere between 285 and 270 BC. This was where they translated what was then the Hebrew Old Testament into the common language of the day, which was Greek. And this was called the Septuagint version because there were 70 scholars who did the translation. So what's happening in Daniel chapter 9? Let me summarize it for you. First of all, Israel has been carried off into Babylonian captivity. Daniel is reading from the book of Jeremiah and realizes that there's 70 years of captivity and that it's almost over. He begins praying and confessing Israel's sin and crying out to God in a very intense way. But in the middle of his prayer, he gets visited and interrupted, and it's often called the interrupted prayer. Daniel is visited by the angel Gabriel. Well, anybody who's familiar with the Bible knows that Gabriel's the angel that visited Mary and brought news to her of the coming Messiah. And here again in Daniel, we see him having the same role of bringing the same message of the Messiah that's to come. But it wasn't just a general prophecy about the Messiah coming. It was a prophecy that he gave to Daniel that predicted to the very day when Jesus would come. Here's what Gabriel told Daniel. And I'm reading from Daniel chapter 9, verse 24. 70 sevens are decreed for your people and your holy city, to finish transgression, to put an end to sin, to atone for wickedness, to bring in everlasting righteousness, to seal up vision and prophecy, and to anoint the most holy. There's one key word that I want to focus on here, and it's the word sevens. In many other translations of the Bible, it's translated as week. In Hebrew, it's the word shaboyim. Throughout the Old Testament, it has several different meanings. It can mean a week, as we call a week of 7 days, or it can be a week of months, or it can be a week of years. And this is what the meaning is here. Gabriel gives Daniel 6 things that need to be completed. They include to finish transgression, to put an end to sin, to atone for wickedness, to bring in everlasting righteousness, to seal up vision and prophecy, and to anoint the most holy. Let's look at verse 25 next, and this is a zinger. Know and understand this. From the issuing of the decree to restore and rebuild Jerusalem until the Anointed One, the ruler, comes, there will be 7 sevens and 62 sevens. It will be rebuilt with streets and a trench, but in times of trouble. This looks like it might be a complex verse, but if you break it down into smaller pieces and with a little bit of historic context, the meaning just jumps off the page. First, there's a trigger. That trigger is the command to restore and rebuild Jerusalem, which was given by Artaxerxes Longimanni on March 14, 445 BC. The emphasis in the verse on the street and the trench is important because it sets it apart from other decrees that were given to just rebuild the temple. And the details of the date are known because it's given in Nehemiah chapter 2, verse 1. One other important thing to note is that the ancient calendars of both the Babylonians and the Hebrews was a 360-day year. So we've started our timer, now we need to know when we need to hit the stop button on our stopwatch. The key verse here is, until the Anointed One, the ruler, comes. In the original Hebrew, Mashiach Nagiv is translated in other versions of the Bible as Messiah the Prince or Messiah the King. This unmistakably is talking about the arrival of Jesus. The first time that Jesus allows himself to be praised as King was on Palm Sunday, just before he was crucified. And historically we know that this was April 6th, 32 AD. So the last element is to emphasize is the time frame. And here again we're told it's 7 sevens and 62 sevens, which is just simple math of adding 7 plus 62 for 69 weeks of years. So now let's take these 3 facts we have. March 14th, 445 BC, through April 6th, 32 AD, and this 69 weeks of years. If we take 445 BC to 32 AD, that's 173,740 days. The number of days between March 14th and April 6th is 24. And we also know that during this period of time there would have been 116 leap years. So that totals out to 173,880 days. Well, here comes the shocker. Take that 69 weeks of years, which would be 69 years times 7 days a week times 360 days a year, and guess what that equals? 173,880. And that's exactly the number of days between when the clock started on the prophecy with the decree to when Christ showed himself on Palm Sunday. Let me show it to you on a timeline. March 14th, 445 BC, the date that the command was issued to restore and rebuild Jerusalem, to April 6th, 32 AD, the first time that Jesus allowed himself to be worshipped as King of the Jews on Palm Sunday. So the number of days between these two dates is exactly 69 weeks of years, or 173,880 days, matching exactly what the angel Gabriel told Daniel. So the question was for me, how could a book verifiably written at least 250 years before Christ, because that's when the Old Testament was translated into Greek, or 600 years before, when most people think Daniel actually wrote it, predict with such accuracy an event? Well, the answer became obvious to me. It had to be because the author of that book lives outside the time domain and truly is God. As much as I love Spider-Man, it is a work of fiction, but the Bible is God's Word. Special thanks goes to Chuck Missler, who I heard present this in 1986 and resulted in me becoming a Christian.